have you ever stopped to really think about it? How did the United States go from being a brand new country to, well, the world's undisputed superpower? What were the key moves, the big moments that led to its global dominance? Well, today we're going to break it all down.
So, to get us started, just a few quick questions. First up, which country on Earth has the single largest economy? We're talking a gross domestic product of over $20 trillion. Okay, next one. Which country do you think has the most powerful, most technologically advanced military in the world? And for the last one, let's look beyond just money and military. Which nation has taken home the most Nobel Prizes for brainpower and the most Olympic medals for sheer athletic skill? Yeah, if you said the United States of America for all three, you're spot on. But see, that's not the interesting part. The real question isn't that the US is a superpower, it's how on earth it got there. So what does it even mean to be a superpower anyway? A good place to start is to look at the economic history of the world, because it tells a story that might really surprise you. You know, what's pretty wild is that for most of recorded history, we're talking 1800 of the last 2,000 years, the world's economic powerhouses are India and China. The US being on top, as you can see right here, isn't some ancient truth. It's an incredibly recent thing that just exploded in the last 100 years or so. So what in the world caused such a massive shift? Well, the whole journey really starts with the most basic building block for any country: land. America's sheer size is a huge part of its power, and trust me, it did not happen by accident. Right from its independence in 1776, the United States was all about expansion, and it happened in a couple of different ways. You had some territories, like the Republic of Texas, that actually chose to be annexed and join the country. But expansion wasn't always so voluntary. The country also grew by literally buying up land. The best example is the purchase of Alaska from Russia back in 1867 for just $7.2 million. That's about 2 cents an acre. People called it a huge mistake at the time, but that deal added a massive, resource-packed territory to the country. It just goes to show expansion was a complex game. And this is where things get even more complicated. The analysis we're drawing from makes it clear that while the US wasn't a formal colonizing empire in the same way Britain or France were, it definitely used some of the same tactics. I mean, in 1898, it overthrew the sovereign kingdom of Hawaii and just annexed it. Around the same time, it got places like Puerto Rico and Guam after the Spanish-American War. So with all this land secured, the next major step was building an economic engine that nobody could compete with. And, strangely enough, the two world wars created this tragic but absolutely pivotal opportunity for the US economy. Think about it. While the wars were just devastating the economies of Europe, I mean, the fighting was happening right on their land, the United States was an ocean away. Not only did it avoid all that destruction, its industries went into overdrive. The research shows it became this so-called arsenal of democracy, making huge profits by selling weapons and supplies to its allies. And this newfound economic power was basically set in stone in 1944. Towards the end of World War II, 44 allied nations got together and made a huge decision. They agreed to link their currencies to the US dollar. Just like that, the dollar became the world's main reserve currency. It meant global trade was now done in dollars, giving the US a massive, long-lasting grip on the entire global financial system. Okay, so the US had the land and it had the money. The next piece of the superpower puzzle was projecting its power all across the globe, and that led to the rise of its incredible military. After World War II, the world basically split in two, kicking off the Cold War. You had the capitalist United States on one side and the communist Soviet Union on the other. Now, they couldn't risk a direct nuclear war. That would be the end of everything. So they fought each other indirectly, using what are called proxy wars. They would fund and arm opposing sides in conflicts all over the planet. Now, according to the source material, to stop communism from spreading, the US used a whole range of tactics in other countries. We're talking about funding opposition parties, funding rebel groups, organizing coups to topple governments, and even carrying out assassinations. Operation Cyclone in Afghanistan is probably the most famous example of this. The CIA funneled billions of dollars to arm and train militant groups who were fighting the Soviet invasion. This kind of intervention in other countries' affairs created a lot of dependencies and massively expanded American influence. And the legacy of this global power game? It's still plain to see today. The United States maintains over 800 military bases in more than 70 countries around the globe. That's a physical footprint of its military power.
But America's power wasn't just built on things it did overseas. This analysis points to a really powerful engine of growth happening right at home, its incredible ability to act as a magnet for the world's best and brightest.
For generations, the promise of opportunity in the US has drawn brilliant people from all over. I mean, from Albert Einstein escaping Nazi Germany to modern tech leaders like Elon Musk from South Africa and Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella from India. Immigrants have been a driving force behind America's biggest breakthroughs. So there you have it. Land, money, and military might built the US into a superpower. But the material we're looking at here raises a really critical question. Once you get all that power, what's life actually like for the average person living inside that superpower? Well, this chart shows a pretty stark reality. The research describes the US as one of the most economically unequal developed countries in the world. As you can see, the top 1% of the population holds almost 43% of the country's entire wealth. That leaves everyone else, the other 99%, to share what's left. And this inequality shows up in other challenges, the research highlights. Even though it's the wealthiest nation on Earth, the U.S. grapples with things like a falling homeownership rate, staggering levels of student debt, incredibly expensive healthcare, and a constant crisis of gun violence. It really paints a complex picture of what life is like for a lot of Americans. And this brings us to the final, really powerful question that this analysis leaves us with. It points out that while countries like Norway or Denmark aren't superpowers, they consistently rank as the best places in the world for citizen well-being. So it leaves us with this fundamental choice to think about. What should a nation's real goal be? To achieve global dominance or to ensure the health, safety, and prosperity of its own people? It's definitely a question we're thinking about.